Hi, welcome to Hamilton and Hazen, Behind the Mic. Join author M.L. Hamilton and me, I'm narrator Kelley Hazen, as we discuss our latest audiobook. Born from our 7 years of collaboration and more than 60 audiobooks we've produced together, listen to the ins, the outs, the ups, and the downs, the inside track you love to follow, Behind the Mic.
Welcome to Behind the Mic number 22. Hi, Kelley.
22. Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about the second in our more audiobook series, the Rue Cypress Mysteries.
Mhm.
And I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to MC again this venture. And
Yeah, this is exciting. This is you and I came up with this idea for the multiple option reading experience or more years ago. It was back when I think when we first came to the conclusion that we had this great collaboration between the two of us, and that we basically wanted to make a lifelong commitment to it. That we had a retreat at your house. We had a retreat, and it was really fun. It was really it's the only time, no, not the only time, twice we've been in the same physical proximity. But it was like two and a half days long, or 2 days long. I mean, it started later on a Friday night, and I flew back to LA on Sunday morning around noon or whatever. And so we met with your authors club, or
yeah,
which was really fun, of which you were president. Are you still president?
yeah,
Uh, and what is it? It's the Northern California's,
publishers and authors.
yeah, really cool. And yeah, and I talked to them about audiobooks. That was really cool. And then you and I spent all of Saturday and Sunday morning sort of exploring ideas and topics and stuff, and how we were going to maximize this exciting collaboration and just goodwill that we had experienced. And one of the things we talked about, and it was on Sunday morning, I remember it was one of the last things, but it was still one of the most exciting to me, was just the idea of the role that audiobooks can play in learning. And that you wanted to, I surely thought it was viable, and you wanted to, as a teacher, would have loved to incorporate audiobooks more into your curriculum, and particularly into just learning. Because
Right.
all the, that, I mean, in the coaching that I've done, in the C-suite and team building trainings that I've done, and I mean, we know that people learn in so many different ways. Not everybody learns by reading a book. Some people like pictures. Some people like to be talked to. They learn by hearing. Some people, some people like to doodle. They have to actually physically, if not with their fingers, then actually stand up and move around in order to maximize their learning potential. And so you and I came up with this idea of the multiple option reading experience. And then it sort of sat there. I don't even think we had named it at that point, but it kind of sat there because we both had our hands full, and there's life, and you're teaching and I'm acting and we're doing all kinds of stuff. And then last year you decided, it was one of your summer wild hares, that you wanted to write something for third and fourth graders, that you felt like there was a limited amount of information out there. And that's when Rue Cypress was born. And so it's really exciting, I think, that we're getting to, this is our second book, and a third is planned, right? The Case of the Lost Boy.
Yes.
And then you also have two, would you call them preschool, or the Panda and the,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so we want to get those, we want to do audio for those too, and have those options, and really start to focus on kind of getting the word out there and finding ways to use these books and this audio in an actual learning environment. And so that's just, I don't know how I got off on that tangent. But one of the things that, so The Case of the Buried Treasure was the first one.
Yes.
I thought it was a terrific introduction to Rue. And now we have the case of the abandoned black cat. That's our Rue Cypress Mystery Volume 2. And I'm going to stop talking and let you talk about this book. This thing is jam packed with ideas and issues that kids struggle with, I mean, or face, let's put it that way. I mean, I'm sure they don't all, and I mean, on the one hand, you have just this idea of superstition
Yeah.
and how to treat your neighbors and how to treat each other. And, Rue recognizes that she has a best friend and she's having these funny feelings for Billy Weber. And then on the other side of the spectrum, these kids are struggling with bullying. They're struggling with how to deal with the principal and, being disciplined. And somewhere in the middle, we get this wonderful story about pets
Yeah.
and having pets. And I mean, and I don't know, it could just be the climate of the day, but I mean, I even got a political lesson about, how a possible option of how I could be relating to the people in the world that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And I mean, this book is just jam-packed. So talk about that and talk about how this story came about and how this book became so packed with ideas.
So I think the pivot that I picked for this book, the thematic focus, is how we treat others, and like you said, oh my goodness, what a um charged topic that is, isn't it, in our political climate? And I think about the kids that are trying to navigate their way through watching adults behaving badly
Yeah, totally.
and how they
Badly. It's so right.
recognize that. And so that was everything, like you brought up, it's that they face bullying, and then they face the way that they treat their neighbors, and they face the way that they treat animals, right? And how we treat animals in our society. And like you said, that's such, not to get political, but it's become such a massive topic right now, isn't it? And so that was where I came down on, was I just really wanted this book to be focused on treating people, and the to talk about the big, ticket item, I guess, for this one is the bullying, right? They have an altercation, which they had in the first book, but they have a further altercation that gets kind of scary in this book. I mean, to the
Yeah.
point where it could be dangerous. And the adults around Rue are struggling to figure out how to best guide her in this. The one thing that they don't want her to do is use physical violence. And I think some of the kids come up and they say, okay, you keep telling us not to react with physical violence, but what's the answer? What's the way forward with this? And in this book, I wanted to give Rue's father a chance to sort of, in the first book, mom really was the one who imparted the lessons and everything, and the dad was just the fun guy. In this one, I wanted Ruth's father to have to kind of step into that role, and
The grilled cheese maker.
yes, and figure out a way for Ruth to go forward with this. And he does provide sort of her template for how she winds up handling the situation, and in a couple of different ways, and she has some reflection. I really wanted it to be about Rue reflecting, because young people, this is what they do, right? They learn how to behave based on guidance from their teachers and their principals and their parents, and maybe even sometimes other people, in the community, like the neighbor.
Sure. Coaches yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I wanted it to be where Rue has to reflect for herself on how best to navigate this very difficult social thing. And I also wanted that it's not just children who navigate this. We as adults have to navigate this. We as adults can face bullying. We don't necessarily call it bullying when we're an adult. We call it intimidation, or we call it other things. but it is just basically a form of bullying. And how do we address it as adults? And often we don't address it even any better than a child does.
Um, I really, so it come to just to touch on a couple of things you mentioned, that when I was narrating, there's a scene where the bullying starts to take on physical, it starts to manifest physically. And I mean, I was frightened.
Yeah.
I I mean, yeah, okay, I'm rude, but Kelley, as Kelley was reading this, and the way that you wrote it very effectively, and it would be alarming to anybody in that situation. And then when you realize you're dealing with a 9-year-old kid,
Yeah.
who's facing this. So yeah, and I really loved that you let her
Yeah.
question the adults, and that the kids talk together about not being sure the parents have the right idea, and about the parents recognizing, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but you know, the parents, I mean, you give us more than one um perspective of different parents in this situation, and some of them are waking up and some of them aren't, and it's I I thought that part of it, the bullying. Do you, as a teacher, do you see bullying? I mean, I know we're talking about, third and fourth graders, 8 and 9 year olds, and Dylan and Daniel. Well, Daniel's in fourth grade, right? But Dylan's in sixth, so we're talking about an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you're in high school. I mean, does this manifest at your school? Does this?
So, I don't see it. Of course, to be fair, I am in a very unique situation in my teaching because I teach honor students and I teach journalism. And so I don't see it on the daily, but I have seen children who have reported that that was what was happening. In fact, we had a really unfortunate incident on Friday with a brand new young teacher who had a situation where the kids were out of control in her class. And one of the kids did leave crying because he felt he was being bullied. And so it required sort of an all hands on deck, you know. So it does definitely happen. Unfortunately, when you get to the secondary level, when you get to high school, the bullying takes on a really can be a very subtle thing, and it's hard to address it because sometimes it's being done online, it's being done through
Right.
text messages that we don't see unless the kid comes forward and tells us. And so that's the danger with that. It's not like somebody shoving somebody on the playground, which does happen. I mean, we do have fights occasionally on campus, but often it's the really toxic bullying, the really frightening bullying is happening behind the scenes where teachers and parents may not even know it's going on until something horrific or scary, comes to our attention. And so that's kind of I'm kind of hedging on it, but it has a different look when you get to secondary.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I remember when I was in high school before, and junior high before, the advent of social media, and there were a lot more physical fights. I mean, you know, you didn't have that you didn't have that other option, right? I mean, if you were going to be aggressive with somebody, you had to do it in their face, and it is interesting to think about that. Um the the aspect, this is a hard right turn, but so another, in terms of how we treat each other, but also how we treat all living beings, you get in the story, and obviously it's called The Case of the Abandoned Black Cat. There's a really cool section. I mean, I just loved, and I live this, you know, Rue's father helping her and Casey come to understand how to be in the same room with the kitten. And I'm like, oh my God. Because we have this cat, right? We have Bodie, and he lives outside. And Claire, my dog, who's a husky, who pretty much the best thing in life is to chase cats, and a squirrel is a distant substitute to chasing cats. And she does well with Bodie, but she forgets,
Yes.
and it was so interesting to like be reading this and going, oh my gosh, I have to start implementing this. And so I actually have. And I put her on the leash, and we go to the front door, we go to see Bodie, or I hold on to her harness, and she has to behave. She can't, and she gets so excited. She just wants to, you know, and I think their relationship is improving.
It's the patience, and that's what I wanted to, it's that idea that, they joke about cats and dogs, fighting like cats and dogs. And the problem is that when you're talking about a power differential, like a husky versus a cat, right? That could be for quite a dangerous situation if it's not monitored. And not even that the husky is aggressive or that the dog is aggressive, but it's a small animal that has a tendency to run. And that trips into some dogs' prey drive.
Right.
And it's teaching them how to behave. It's the same way I feel about teaching um with my granddaughter when she comes over, and her instinct is to grab the dogs and hug the dogs. And I'm always cautioning her that we approach, there's certain etiquette. There's etiquette to how we approach a dog, there's etiquette to how we approach a cat. And teaching young people how to do that is so vitally important, because otherwise it can lead to unfortunate occurrences. And it's the same way with dogs and cats. It's teaching them that etiquette of how you approach the others. And the dog usually is so excited to sniff all over the cat, and the cat thinks of it as, aggression. The cat doesn't know. So you have to give them time to um, learn about each other.
Claire is a very mouthy dog. She's very mouthy. She likes to put her mouth on everything. And there was one point in the book where I think Rue references the fact that they taught Casey at an early age that she couldn't bite things, or that she couldn't chew their fingers and stuff. We've always let Claire, she just constantly chews. My friend Pamela actually said, oh, it's so sweet. She loves you so much. She wants to devour you. She's always got my fingers in her mouth and stuff. And I was reading along in the book, and I was like, uh-oh. I've been a bad dog parent. Oh no, I've let the dog learn to chew. So I don't know. But that is sort of the overriding theme of this book, isn't it? Patience.
Yeah, patience. And also, the famous Atticus quote of walking around in somebody else's skin, right? And seeing what it is from somebody else's point of view, which when Rue finally decides how she's going to approach the bully, it's that way of doing it. It's the walking around in somebody else's skin.
And not to, I mean, I know we say we don't want to turn things political, and then we always do. But I mean, there is that. It's like in the world we live in right now, it's like, how are we ever going to come together? How are we ever going to be able to listen to each other? And this situation that we're in, where there's no room for disagreement,
No.
and it's such a terrific message that, we don't have to agree, but we do. It's the etiquette of it, right? We have to be patient, and we have to be willing to try to understand why another person might have a different point of view. And
Yeah.
only then will the tensions come down enough
Yeah.
that it might be okay for someone to change their mind.
Well, and isn't that it? Yeah. I mean, it's with education, we call it effective filter. And when your effective filter goes up, it's that where you feel fight or flight, right? And your effective filter goes up, there's no learning to be had. And so it's that thing when we challenge people and we make them feel that they are um ignorant or that they're wrong or that their whole belief system is flawed, which and to be honest with you, I'm not saying that there aren't some people whose belief system is based on improper information, right? We know that. We know that there are people who have certain belief systems that are based on improper information. But this idea that we can shout at them enough to make them change is absolutely ludicrous. And it's what it does is it raises that effective filter. And so they come back even stronger and even more outrageous than they would if they had been approached in a different manner. Um, I think, yeah, I think it bears all of us taking a look, an inner look and see how am I dealing with those people in my life that I don't agree with, and how can I maybe approach them in a better way so that they aren't feeling attacked or they aren't feeling challenged, that we're actually hitting at what is their core, who they think that they are, who they believe that they are in their core.
We were walking the dog this morning and there was a yard sign, because we are in a year of political election. And it was Harrison Walls 2024, obviously. That's what the sign said. Harrison Walls, obviously. And I just thought to myself, and I mean, you can have any sign you want, right? I mean, you can have any sign you want. It's the United States, freedom of speech. But I just thought, and to me, it is an obvious choice. For me, it is an obvious choice. Clearly, for the people that live in that house, it's an obvious choice to them who should be the next president and vice president of the United States. But it struck me that that was snotty.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna help anybody. It's not gonna change anybody's mind. And that it's not rhetoric, but that kind of humor or holier than thou or righteousness. I don't know, because righteousness isn't necessarily a bad thing. But you get where I'm going with this.
I
I'm
do.
belaboring the point. It's like it just that's part of what's keeping us so divided, because there's an attitude, there's a superiority in a comment like that or a sign like that that makes it hard to find commonality.
It's like if you so the big thing right now is this thing about the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Illinois. And I've been reading some things about, like, the comment was made during the debate that was fact checked and debunked, that they were eating pets. And it's been debunked repeatedly by the people in Springfield, the police, the mayor, etc. Um, Unfortunately, it is being kept alive not only by the side that brought forward that false rumor and pretended that it was real, but it's being kept alive by people on the other side who are using it to make political gains with it also. And what's happening is those poor people, like the elementary school has been shut down for 2 days because of bomb threats. And those people in Springfield are suffering real consequences for the rhetoric and the discourse that is happening in this country without any regard for the real human beings that are suffering for this. And I think that, to get back to the book, I think that's what I was trying to point out, is that there are real people who suffer for the fact that we are so divided, that we are so antagonistic toward each other, and it seems like there's no bottom that either side will use in promotion of their own agendas, which is scary. I mean, it's very scary for the immigrants that are legally, by the way, legally in Springfield, that were asked to come to Springfield, and for the people that were already in Springfield, there is real significant consequences, and they're afraid. They're afraid. And how, what a horrible thing that is, you know?
Yeah. No, it is. It's, and uh yeah, it's that, when does winning become more important than the actual plight of the people that you're asking to be on your side?
Right.
You know, I mean, it's power versus governance, I guess, you know, and what is it actually that these candidates are fighting for? I mean, that's a really legitimate way to decide on who one wants to vote for. What is it exactly that they're fighting for?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted not to just, again, hard left turn this time. I thought it was kind of interesting. I know all kinds of people listen to Behind the Mic, and Bruce said something to me, because one of the wonderful things about Ruth Cypress is that it has its own fabulous soundscape.
Yes.
Um, and he actually told me that the end, there's the soundscape, and then there's a playoff at the end that segues into chapter 1, the haunted house. Yeah. And he said that that's his homage to Lucky Man by Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Oh, really?
So you heard it here on Behind the Mic. The soundscape from Bruce Cypress is an homage to Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Lucky Man. Yeah, and you'll never be able to listen to it again.
That's awesome. It's
This book,
fun.
yeah, this book recorded so fast. I think we recorded it in like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also probably because there were very few words over 2 syllables or 3.
Helps. That helps. And no,
Yeah, yeah,
world languages.
yeah, but that gets me to the and maybe our final topic for today. That gets me to I had written this because we exchange notes sometimes before we record these Behind the Mic, so that we can both think about what we're going to say, so that they aren't all an hour long or whatever. But I had written in my notes, me, turning over a new leaf in recording. And
Yes,
you're like, well, I hope you'll let me know what that means.
I did. I had a vague worry at first. I was like, what does that mean?
What did you think when you read that? What did you think it was?
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. It just felt alarming.
Well, it's twofold, kind of, because and then we can decide if we want to talk about part B, keep going on part B, or maybe even do a special edition of Behind the Mic to talk about AI.
Yeah.
Or but actually what it was is I was recording this book, because this book was so much fun. It was just so much fun to record. And maybe it was because it's not that it's simple, because I think, as we've indicated by what we've just been talking about, that this book is complicated. It's a complicated book, but it's straightforward. I mean, I don't know. I really loved, it's just like, it just flew recording it. But another part of the recording experience, so there was the content, right? Okay. God, I'm all over the place. I have made, and I don't know if I've talked about this before, and if I have, just tell me to shut up. But I used to deal in the recording. Well, first of all, I started having work done on my neck. I was having a lot of neck pain, and it was in between. It's been in between when we were young, which is the last book you and I recorded, and the Case of the Abandoned Black Cat. And I've been receiving treatments. It's called decompression.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the medieval rack. You know, you lay on this table, and there's a very loose brace, but it extends. It just basically gives you some traction, or decompress, and it decompresses and it's not painful at all, and it's really great, and it's 17 minutes long, and I loved it. And I had 10 treatments over 5 weeks, and I came back into the booth, and we had to raise the mic.
Oh,
We had to vertically raise the mic and the pop filter, because I think I had just gotten so, and of course I wasn't rocking around like this, but an inch is a big deal in your neck.
yeah.
And we didn't measure it either, but I was standing completely differently than I was, the last time I recorded an audiobook. And I think there's something in that lack of tension, that release of tension. But when I went into the recording of it, I used to function in this place of, that voice has got to be exactly right. It's got to be exactly, and I'm still there. I mean, I'm not gonna come out of left field and change somebody's voice in the middle of a book. But I've released my grip on trying, I don't want to say control, because I mean somebody has to be in charge, but but I know who these characters are.
Yeah.
I hear them in my head, and more significantly, their relationship to one another. And I trust our listeners. They can make the adjustment, they can make the jump. I trust your writing. They know who's talking, and unless everybody's in the same scene, and so obviously if everybody's in the same scene, then it's significantly, and talking, then it's significantly more important to make sure there's variation in all the different voices and that they're accurate to the characters. But how often does that happen? That
Right.
never happens, or they'll be described as being in the same scene, but not everybody will talk, so it's a non-issue. So I've just been sort of relinquishing control. I'm not singing note to note as much anymore. I'm singing more the phrase. Singers will understand that reference. So anyway, and that's kind of my new leaf. It's just I'm just kind of letting.
Well, I think that's the difference, isn't that with anything? When you first start out, you're so deliberate about everything you're doing because you're just learning it, and then it gets into that part of your brain where it becomes just natural, right? It's a natural response. And so maybe that's exactly where it is. I mean, we've done a lot of audiobooks together, and
Okay,
I'd have to look, but it's well over 70. I think it's
that's crazy.
yeah, I think it's approaching, let me look really quick. I think it's approaching,
Of course, when you do a series where you write a book a month,
so it's 82. It's even more than I thought. It's 82. Yeah. So, I mean, we've done a lot of audiobooks together, and I can imagine, I mean, so every book has different characters in it, but you are very familiar with my writing by now. And, my voice obviously um is second nature to you after so many audiobooks. So it makes sense that it would seem more.
I think that's another reason why why this book recorded so fast, is because we did when we were young, which was like butter, right? And then I did a different author's book, and then came back to Rue, and we did those 3 in like
Yeah.
6 weeks or something. I mean, it went really fast. And again, it was like, as soon as it's just, and part of it is that, yeah, okay, we've done 82 audiobooks, but the other part of it is that we come from such similar backgrounds. I mean, and I think that ultimately that's why we knew we were a good combination, is because we just meld, and we have similar backgrounds. We come from similar, we're the same, roughly the same age. And it's all of that information, all of that DNA, all of that similarity, just, it comes out in the way you talk. I mean, we have the same cadence. We probably take the same depth of breath when we inhale. and I'm not kidding. I mean, it really is that the cadence is everything.
Yes.
And in terms of it being easy to record, knowing how much air to take in to
Yeah.
complete the phrase that, that makes sense of the phrasing. And yeah, I mean, I thank my lucky stars for you, Missy.
Same. I mean, obviously, with the amount we've sold and with as many as we've done, it's a working combination, obviously. And
Yeah,
so so grateful to have a partner in this because I was to kind of put a cherry on top with this. We had the NCPA meeting last Sunday, and one of the authors came up to me and he said, "So tell me why I should do an audiobook. What is the reason why? Because I don't want to expend the money for it." And I said, "Then you're being short-sighted because you're not realizing the massive market that there is. You're not realizing how many people really benefit from having audiobooks." And I said, "Not only that, but you're missing out on having somebody else who was willing to promote your work with you. You're missing out on having a partner, which is what I've always had with you. And
Mm.
I think it's made my success so much higher than it would have been without you." So
You've allowed me to be your partner. I got to tell you, I mean, I've worked with a lot of authors, and if you're the cream of the crop, which of course you are, I mean, I've worked with authors who felt threatened.
yeah,
I mean, literally felt threatened, and not to the degree that they would try to throw a monkey wrench in the works, but they were not, they didn't want to interact with me. They didn't want to answer questions. They just wanted, here's the manuscript to record it. And I mean, and that opportunity for a partner is there if the author is willing to take it. And I'm just glad, yeah, because I mean, you value my work and want to promote it as your work, you
yeah,
know, not our work together. You want to promote it
it is.
as your work.
That's how I think of it. It's our work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our career.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
thank you for that. Thank you for that.
thank you.
All
All right,
right.
so should we do some updates on where we're at? Okay.
Go.
Currently, I'm working on the next Christmas mystery because our goal is to definitely have that ready to go so that we can load it probably around Thanksgiving, so it'll be available very early in
Everly and Isaac. Yeah.
Kelley and Isaac, our fourth one in that series, Chasing Courage. And then it will be Peyton. We'll have the cross burning case, and then the Fallen Veil will come shortly after that. So the winter belongs to Peyton.
And the cross burning case is a part of which series?
The Hate Crimes Division. So
Right.
the new series.
And the Fallen Veil. Now, and my question to you, is it the Fallen Veil or just Fallen Veil?
Fallen Veil.
Fallen Veil. So, and Fallen Veil is part of Peyton Brooks'
The early cases.
cases.
Yeah.
And those will be first of the year or December or
Those will be in the winter. I'm leaving it at that. I'm leaving it a little vague. It depends on how quickly we can get the next Everly out, and then go from there. Um, those tend to take a little bit longer to write just because, it's Peyton and it's a little bit more, the plot lines are a little bit more complicated. But it will be the winner of Peyton. So for those of you who have been so patiently waiting, it's coming, I promise. And we'll have it, for those cold winter months when it's raining, you can listen to your audiobook or read, in front of your fireplace. So
well, and it's a great time to get started on World of Samar while you wait, because that'll be uh starting maybe next week or the week after, probably the week after that.
fantastic.
Yeah, my intention is I wanted to see where you were. And I think we've got plenty of time to do what is the followers of Eldon?
Yes. Yeah.
is next.
Mm,
And I'd like to see getting that one in before Chasing Courage,
Awesome.
maybe even another one after Chasing Courage. So
That would be awesome. So we got a lot coming up,
yeah,
and we will head into fall, all steam ahead, and we've had a very productive summer, and we're continuing that into the fall, which is super exciting.
and I think it would be interesting. Obviously, you and I can talk about this off mic, but I think it might be interesting to have a special edition of Behind the Mic about AI.
I'm all for it. I
Yeah,
think
because I think it impacts us both in very interesting and different ways.
yes,
And I think our fans can have a very important impact on on the future of AI and how it affects our industry and their entertainment. And,
absolutely.
you know,
It's something that everybody should be thinking about. It's something that everybody should be concerned about. Um, so definitely, I think we definitely will probably before we do Chasing Courage, we'll probably come out with a behind the mic about all about AI.
that'd be great.
So the case of the abandoned black cat will be released on October 1st, just in time for Halloween. Our 82nd audiobook. We are
And it'll be ebook, paperback, and audiobook.
all three. Yes, all three will be available. We're super excited about our second title in the more uh educational genre.
Multiple option reading experience.
And hopefully in the future we'll be adding another series to that and more titles to that. Because our goal is to have a whole quite a few titles available for young readers. So this has been Behind the Mic number 22. Thank you, Kelley.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll see you again then for Behind the Mic number 23, where we will be discussing AI.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Hamilton and Hazen Behind the Mic. Visit authormlhamilton.net and kellyhazennarrates.com to join our newsletters for more insider news and views. Today's episode is sponsored by Phoenix Publication Services, PPS, Digital Shepherds. Let us ignite your writing goals.